You're listening to Squatch Talks Podcast. Real stories and real encounters told by real researchers. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hey, Squatchers. Eric Spinner here. I'm at base camp. We are preparing for a weekend of fun with the Small Town Monsters crew. Yeah, we made it through a rough night. The weather was not cooperating. We had torrential downpours. As you can see by my tent, it's not looking too good. A little flooded inside. Got Jake, he just tore down his tent.
Swim today.
Yeah?
Nah.
Oh, look at that steak, huh?
Yeah.
That's a big ass steak.
Don't want that.
We got Chewie. We got Chewie.
Here.
Hey, Chewie.
You're trying to sabotage your tent too.
Yeah, man. But yeah, we got base camp set up, so we are gonna have some good activity tonight. And we got some other guys joining us. Got a few sites set up. We got behind us, we got this awesome area of just cedar swamp and then the river behind it. So we are good to go. Yeah, man. So hey, stay tuned. It's gonna be exciting. All right, Jake and I just took a little walk down to the creek, which is definitely flooded. So I don't know if we're gonna find any tracks since this is a little higher than usual. Yeah, this is where we found them in 2015. No, right here, look. The one Mike Famelon found was
right.
That grass is poking up. And then I crouched down to look at it. I looked to my left, and under this bush was the other one. But the bush had leaves on it when I was here. But yeah, this is definitely higher than it was then, which means the peninsula on the other side is all flooded too.
Slippery and wet.
Now, could something have sheltered under this bridge? Who knows? I don't see any visible track signs. But definitely a great spot, and we will explore this area in depth later on.
It's a great area for friends though.
For sure. Well, I'm not seeing the shrine that we found. And this is what I call peninsula, but it's not really, this dark, dank, muddy area where we found juvenile tracks on our expedition in 2015. And there are some impressions here. Hard to say because it rained so heavy last night, if at all. But this is where we found 18 juvenile prints, and we made casts of 5 of them. And across the creek was where the adult female casts were made. So yeah, river's up, flowing high, flowing fast, and now we got some kayakers showing up. So I'm gonna head back to base camp. Hey, we're back here at base camp, and the rain has ended for the most part. Got some special guests joining us. We got Nathan and Terri.
Hi there.
Showed up from PA, and my special lady, Heather, came and brought me some dry clothes and a dry comforter. The townhouse did not serve well last night. We had a little bit of inclement weather, so I'm feeling it today, but managed to make it through the night. Everybody else car camped, but you know me, I'm a glutton for punishment. So tonight's gonna be a lot better. I got the tent dried out. Well, it's drying out, and emptied the water. This is not my ideal temperature or climate for camping in, but we're gonna make it work with Small Town Monsters. Stay tuned. We are here at the base camp for our filming with Small Town Monsters. They're out for a hike, so I thought I'd take this opportunity to let you hear a little bit from my friend Mike here, who's been on a number of our expeditions, and in fact your inaugural one, I think, was here at this campsite.
That's correct.
And back in 2015 at the first public BFRO expedition that we had, and if I recall, I think you got the Bigfoot bug at that time.
The Bigfoot bug. It was great. It was a really wonderful experience because, I got into it when the episode $6 Million Man with the Bigfoot episode, and it always intrigued me. And as a kid, you don't think much of it, and I kind of flew by it and then started watching the Finding Bigfoot TV show. And then I found out that the BFRO had an expedition that you were running in South Jersey, and I inquired about it, and I sent you an email, and that's how I became involved in it. And so I met you and Art and everybody, and it was very enlightening to be able to learn more about the whole Bigfoot enigma and what it takes to become a researcher, what kind of gear you need, the mindset, the mentality to be out in these woods to do the proper research, and you taught me that, and you taught me how to use a thermal, types of thermal cameras to use, what to look for as far as footprints and IDing things. And
techniques we use.
Exactly. Yeah. Casting techniques. You actually did a demonstration of the casting technique, which I picked up on, which
we actually had real impressions.
Real impressions down at that creek bed. We had the juvenile print and the adult print, which for me, seeing that for the first time, I was like, this is amazing, and we were out there and it was damp and you were casting it, and I was so elated to be part of this, to see how you do it, to learn the process and see it in real time. And then, when it came time to when the cast hardened up and we pulled that out of the ground and you cleaned it off, to see those toe impressions, it was a moment of just like, wow, this is amazing.
And the compression in the toes. Yeah. That's something that Meldrum talks about and Cliff Barrickman talks about.
Indeed.
And it's funny because you mentioned when we were extracting them from the ground after they hardened, because it was kind of like this. It was raining, like remember? And I actually covered them with plastic bags so that they could dry properly. And we went back over there, and just then Art had shown up. He had picked up Heather, and if I recall correctly, she was pissed off at me. But so you guys were standing there by the creek, and she saw something like an orange, like an auburn colored arm come down by the tree, and she spun you around and said, "Did you see? Look!" And it was gone that quick.
She was strong, man. She remember how fast I was on a fall over. Like, what? She said, "Did you see that?" And I'm like, "No." What was it? She's like, "The arm came down," and we were looking really heavy through the tree lines. We didn't see any movement. We hear about the smells, and I was like literally smelling the air, and it was nothing. It was just so quiet, And then she had that moment of, okay, what was that? Something did pop out from behind that tree.
Right.
You know? And
yeah, Art and I actually took her back there and did a recreation
Yeah,
with
did
her. After the expedition ended, we stayed and did a little recreation with her.
Yeah.
That was when we first started dating. Now she's my wife.
A long time ago, man. And you're married to her.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a great expedition. And you know, when we're out doing our research in the middle of the night, you know, you open your mind up to what's around. You're listening for different things, and you hear the barred owls. You know, you hear the frogs going. You know, you're trying
carpenter frogs sound like knocks.
My God, they're loud, and you're trying to understand what you're hearing. You know, and I remember asking Art, like, what was that? You know, I was kind of like on edge. He's like, oh, that's just a carpenter frog. I'm like, okay. And a minute later, you hear the coyotes start howling. And then we were real quiet, and we're all listening attentively to see if we can hear something in between the yote yells, you know? And
or if there's something blended in.
Right.
And you remember, like, part of the stuff I was instructing people to kind of do when we first set up an area or we go to a satellite camp is to kind of sit quietly and kind of get accustomed to the sounds of the forest around you so that you can differentiate you know, between what you're hearing. And that's why I always included like clips of local animals that might be in the area so that you can get accustomed or
native to our environment.
You know what I mean? So.
And you made a good point too. Whenever we show up at a research area, we kind of want to go a little stealthy, and we always turn the car off. We usually wait a minute. We'll have on the windows and listen. But when we get out of the vehicle, we don't get out all slamming the doors. We kind of quietly close those doors to see if we can hear anything as we get out of the car. You know, and just pay attention to our surroundings. So.
And I've taken it a step further with turning on our audio recorders before we get out of the car.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which, of course, I broke the cardinal rule when we were at Pennsylvania.
And make sure you don't close your audio recorder in the door.
Or leave it on the roof. How many times have I pulled away with my recorder falling
you're
off?
bunking off the back of the truck. You're like, what was that? Was that a Squatch? Oh, it was audio
I did that last time we were out a few weeks ago.
I remember that night.
Fortunately, it hit the front of my truck, so I knew it fell.
Yeah.
But how many times have I had to go back and get my recorder?
Many times. Many times. You know, you're out there. You're so in tune to what you're doing. You forget sometimes that you have this piece of gear or that piece of gear, or if you're out, you forget to bring a piece of gear with you. It happens, you know.
So what would you say though, after all these years now of doing this? I mean, I know you've been into other things like UFOs, and you were doing a lot with the drones recently here in Jersey.
Yes.
But what would you say has been the most exciting or most conclusive? Like, what really has done it for you to make you feel like there is a as of yet undiscovered primate out here?
I really think the one thing that really stands out with me with your expedition we did was the white orb that we had seen in the woods when we were out with the B group, so to speak. And several of us had seen this, and one of the members mentioned that, you know, there was a report here of a Bigfoot with a possible orb sighting. And that night when we were in the woods, we were in the middle of the forest where there was no fire road around, no campground around, and this orb just meandered very slowly, bright white light through the trees. And the 8 of us all looked at it and we're like, where is this coming from? You know, could it be ball lightning? You know, but there was no power lines around. We were in an area where it's just woods. You know, no campgrounds, no trails. And we turned and we remember on a walkie-talkie we called for the A group to come back so they can also see this. And we kind of turned back. It just kind of dozed off into the woods there and just dissipated very slowly. And it basically the light just went out.
And it was white, you're saying?
It was a bright white light. And
how big? How big would you describe it as? A grapefruit size? Or?
I'd say a basketball size.
Wow.
About like that, from what I remember. And then one of the members there, one of the attendees said to me, you know, Bigfoot has been so to speak, that they are around these orbs, and potentially these orbs can turn into a Bigfoot. You know, I have yet to understand the concept of that, and you know, do I believe in it? I'm kind of skeptical on that.
That's not as bad as the guy that was on my British Columbia expedition who told me that they travel home with him in an orb and hang out in his kitchen. He was showing me pictures of orbs on his laptop.
For me, it seems kind of far-fetched. You know,
not to diss any of you orb people out there.
Exactly.
Okay? I had my own experience with a white light as well up in Nathan's expedition in Pennsylvania at Dead Woman's Hollow, and that is what did it for me as far as bringing me over to the dark side, as I call it. And you know, now I'm more open-minded to the potential that there is some what we call paranormal parallels, right?
Yep.
And again, here in the Jersey Pine Barrens, there's a lot of that going on, especially with the folklore of the Jersey Devil and the different sightings that, you know, people have here.
Yep.
Although, as you know, my opinion on that is it's usually a misidentification from Bigfoot. But,
the same mindset too, and misidentification. You know, you hear some people say it may have been that large bat from South America that maybe one of them traveled up here. But you know, and you look at the scientific aspect of that. You know, is a large 6-foot winged bat going to fly from South America across the ocean to the United States?
Yeah.
Probably not.
Probably
Maybe
not.
it hitched a ride with a cargo ship.
Yeah, that's possible. But they wouldn't survive in this
But they would not survive
climate,
here. Exactly.
You know?
They would not survive here. My feeling on the whole Bigfoot subject, I think it's a flesh and blood creature. I do believe that in New Jersey it does pass through. There possible maybe a family that do habituate in certain areas that I feel they have sustenance around them, waterways, rivers, farms, you know, where they can go out and grab a livestock. But I'm the mindset that it's a flesh and blood creature, and that they do pass through. And I do feel that there are a family, so to speak, here in Jersey too, who do make their home here, you know, in certain areas.
Okay. Yeah. So recently, though, you've been developing some new technology, new gear.
Yes.
You want to tell us a little about?
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
As a former MUFON investigator, you know, we try to look at the ways to detect these anomalous objects coming into our atmosphere, and we use infrared. It's known that infrared can detect objects of heat in the atmosphere. We look at full spectrum cameras, and what I had built was I got 2 full spectrum cameras, but they're more of a forensic camera style. They're used on the interstates and highways when you pass through a toll zone. These are the ones that take the images of your license plate. These things are high-speed cameras because the object that passes in front of it, you have to have that high-speed frame rate or frame per second to be able to capture that moving vehicle's plate. So it'll be blurry if you have a certain frame rate. So with this high-speed camera, it gives me opportunity to be able to, anything that moves fast in front of it, I can go back and slow it down, fully look at the details of the object that passed in front of it.
Wow.
And the frame rate on this camera is about 250 frames per second. So the standard infrared camera, when you look at this stuff, is usually 60 frames per second or less.
Yeah, or 30.
Unless you're getting into the higher frame rate cameras, which are very expensive in the thousands of dollars. The camera, that's one of my cameras. So I built a dual camera setup. They're both infrared. One is the forensic camera that does the high frame rate and has a zoomable and magnifying lens. And the second camera also has a zoomable magnifying lens, but it's only an 8 power, to where the forensic camera is a 16 to 18 power frame zoom. They both serve the same purpose, just one has better forensic capabilities to be able to zoom at high speed frame rates to capture that object that passes in front of it.
Hey, if one's good, two's got to be better.
Exactly. You know, when you always hear, you know, one is good, but 2 is great because you have more. And it allows me to basically do a larger, wider viewing angle.
Right.
And I can also rotate the cameras, have one facing forward, one facing backward.
And can you control it remotely?
Yes, I can control the camera remotely on my laptop through the control software, and I can adjust the frame rates on the software. I can adjust the magnification. I can adjust the actual pan and tilt and the width the camera wants to see. I can narrow it, you know, bring it down to almost like a 20-degree view to get more pinpoint accuracy. The other thing I built, which is similar to what we call a UFO DAP. It's a device built on a Raspberry Pi using proprietary software, and it was built by the developers who built the Sky 360 application platform, and that was a device that had multiple cameras, infrared, thermal cameras, and it would pick up objects in the sky with thermal and infrared, so you'd have a dual image of what you're seeing. So this concept was the software they made was called Bob, and it's free. and you have to basically download it onto a computer. There are requirements as far as specifics go for memory and CPU, but this software will interact with your camera that you use, and you can adjust everything through the Bob software. And this Bob software, since it's already pre-built, when you look at this software, it will detect and highlight the object, and it'll tell you a bird, a moth, a plane, and it's a robust software that is actually detectable of what's flying in the atmosphere. Motorcycles coming.
Yeah, man. I'd rather they came now than tonight when we're out doing our night ops.
Pass through.
They definitely disrupt our activity from time to time.
We're gonna play ninjas and hide on them. But the software is unique, and the cameras are a standard security camera. And again, like anything, you want that high frame rate, the better lens, the
I
better.
assume it does night vision also.
It does night vision too. And when you put this onto a mast, I have it attached to a pole, and I have an outdoor weatherproof box that has the computer in it with the little port switch, and that runs out to the camera, and it's powered by a small little electronic battery pack, those little solar power packs. So I set that out, I let it run, and it has actually a 280-degree span of anything that passes in front of it.
So how can that benefit us with our research?
With regards to Bigfoot research, it is an infrared camera, and we can use that camera in our research as a detectable for heat. What I'm looking at doing is adding in a second camera for thermal. So we'll have an infrared camera at a 90-degree angle, and then the thermal camera actually at a 90-degree angle. And we're utilize both those cameras. So we have the object detected in the infrared, we will also have it on the thermal. So now we can detect heat source. And we should be able to see that heat source on that object. So if its arms are glowing, the whole back area, chest area, it'll show up on that camera. And the best thing is the camera will pan and move with the object. We won't have to move at all. It'll sit still and do its own object maneuvering and maneuvers and just follow that up to where it goes. The good feature behind that is the camera is zoomable. So we can zoom in hundreds of feet on this and hopefully get a clear picture of the facial features, the muscle tones, if it has long hair, short hair, the muscle strength, how big the arms are, if it flexes or moves, the neck structure. We hear of some of these Sasquatch that have no neck, where you just see a peak and then the head and the shoulders, to where some are do have shoulders and have a flat top neck portion with a skinny neck. So these cameras will be able to zoom in on that, and we can detect that.
Wow. That's awesome, man.
It's amazing.
That is amazing. I think this is really gonna, take our research to the next level.
Definitely. And I actually use it on my son to test it out. So I had him go in my yard and just stand there, and of course he's like, "Oh, I'm a Sasquatch," like, all right.
He's playing the part.
Playing the part, and it was amazing. As you can see the dual camera, where you have the infrared, you can see the gray feature outlines, and then with the thermal next to him, I'm picking up all his body heat. I can see where it's cold on him, where it's warm, and I can zoom in and actually can see his eye sockets, and I can see his pupils moving on the camera.
Wow.
And when he was laughing, you can see the change in the mouth. And the muscle tone within his facial features here, you'll pick up muscle tone.
Could you imagine if we had used that with Patty?
It would have been amazing.
There would be no
question. No questions about it. You would know everything you possibly want to know about Patty's muscle tones. We hear when her leg movements, the flexation of the muscles, we would be able to see all that. But
even that herniation in the thigh muscle,
exactly, everything. We'd be able to see everything on it.
That would be a game changer.
So
wow,
I'm
that's
still
cool, man. And you're gonna talk about this on our expedition.
Yes, I am. I'm actually going to bring it out. I'm going to bring it out. We're going to try it out.
And we're going to put it into use in the field.
Yes.
So hey, that's pretty exciting. But if you haven't signed up yet, go over to bfro.net and join the fun.
Come on out and see the product in use. It'll be the maiden voyage.
Mike is one of our newest New Jersey BFRO investigators, so welcome aboard.
Thank you for sponsoring.
Happy to have you on the team.
Very appreciative. I'm excited to be part of this organization. I think they have a really great mindset on this whole enigma. They have everything well documented. They have a database that we can peruse and we see what comes in.
A scientific
and
approach to the research.
Exactly.
And no drama.
And exactly, no drama. And sometimes it's hard to find places that don't have drama. You know? And
He's not here in the Pine Barrens. We say forget about it.
Yeah, just don't. Yeah, bring a shovel. But I really feel that the people involved with the BFRO are truly enthusiastic about the research. They, like us, want to know more. Necessarily prove that one is out there, and just continue what we know and bring more data forth and more reports forth, because the more there are, the more reports we can get, the more details are coming forward of hopefully reliable sources.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
we can formulate this whole picture and this nature of what this object of being is.
And that's why I think Mike is a great addition to our New Jersey BFRO team, because your IT background.
Yes.
I've really wanted to kind of plot certain patterns that we've had as far as sightings. So that's your mission, should you choose to accept it.
I accept it 100%.
Okay. We want to plot the activity, the dates, when it's, so that way we might be able to get a better understanding of when to be in certain areas.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And I just don't have the smarts for that.
You got the smarts. You got the smarts. I'll train you. Don't worry. I'll teach you.
I like to surround myself with people who know more than I do. Okay, so.
Well, I'm appreciative of you offering me and allowing me to join the BFRO with you and Jacob and be part
I
of this.
just sponsored you. It was up to the
I know,
big guy,
you
Matt.
Did. You sponsored me, and I appreciate that.
But,
I will tell you, there was one thing I did years ago, before I became a BFRO member. I was curious to see in the tri-state area, New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, of how many reports were out there, and try and take the data that's in these reports. Now, of course, I didn't have access to the flats, but I have access to the public data, and I went through literally every New Jersey report, every PA report, NE report, and I put a timeline together in Excel, and I built out a whole graphing chart. I included the day, the date, the weather pattern, the season, the month, moon phase, tide phase, and I graphed out potentially where the travel patterns would be, and I have it still to this day in an Excel database, and I can see September, this is the area where it's coming through, and then you can see like towards the end of like the fall where it would spike again. So you had it coming in through like September, October, and then you see it on that next fall where it was coming and leaving, where it spiked up again with the patterns. And then I listed by class, class A, class B, listed all that. And any other details I could find within there, like if some of them had latitude and longitude, I actually plotted them out into the program I have onto the map to actually pinpoint, and then linked up the data. So when you click on the hyperlink, it brings up the location in Google Maps as you're looking at the data itself.
Wow.
And as I said, I went through all 3 states to do this, and I'm now rethinking of redoing it to adding in.
I was going to say, now you have that as your base calculations, you know what I mean? So maybe you can then take that information, that data, and incorporate it into something else that maybe
most definitely
can give us that.
It's going to enhance
pattern, of movement, shall we say? Because that's really what I've been hoping to try to achieve. I used to, in my early days, try to take sighting reports and see where's the center of the activity. You know what I mean? Because that's what I felt like. That's where they're bedding down.
Right. Is there a travel way that they're coming? You can see, like one of the reports I found, when you look at these reports, they're scattered. So you'll have some from like May, some from like December, and but they're all different years. Some of them are same years. And I found one in Pennsylvania, on the border there, like almost Maryland area. But when you look at this, I plotted out, and I actually used push pins on a map. I went and got a big 7-foot map of every state, and I push pinned also all the locations. And I took a step back to see if I can see anything, and what I had seen was this pattern of just push pins that went straight down from mid-Pennsylvania all the way down towards Maryland. And I was like, this is interesting. I'm like, okay, this to me looks like a pattern. So I went back and looked at the data to see the dates, saying one was in 2019, one was in 2022. So there's a 2-year difference between A and B.
Right.
Now I looked at C and D pinpoints and said, okay, this was from like 1978. This one was from like 1986. So I'm like, okay, could this potentially be a correlation? Is it coming back? Could it be a family that when as a child this juvenile Sasquatch remembered this area,
Right.
and now as it's older and adult Sasquatch, potentially an older Sasquatch,
Returning to its
roots.
Yeah.
So when I look at this pinout, I'm like, something here. Is there something correlated here? It has to be, because it's too coincidental that it's not too far apart, but yet it's not close enough. There's like maybe a 20-mile difference.
Right.
But every pinout was perfectly symmetrical.
And that was based only on published reports.
Published reports only.
Now you've got the
flats.
The ones that are unpublished on our field logging and tracking system.
Yep.
That you can then incorporate those in now,
Yes.
and really get like maybe
And I
something more
started
conclusive.
I started doing that with New Jersey. And I got a different color pin this time, and I started pinning out those flat reports to see if I can see any correlations again.
Wow.
Besides, the flat report plus the public report, what it would show in the differences in distance, time frame, again the season, and so I can have some sort of simulation or similarities there. And say, okay, we need to go look at this area at this time. And that's my whole goal, is to try and figure out when they're coming through, when is the area they're visiting, and kind of how long are they there. How many sightings were reported in that area by people, by campers, by hikers. So if we know in September, where we have 10 reports from different people that something was in that area in September, we now know we have to go there at this time in September and investigate that area, see if we can see or hear anything or find anything.
And that's something that Russ Jones talks about in his books. Dr. Jones is a researcher that we've interviewed in the past, and he makes a really, specific point for us citizen scientists, as we're called, to really be more scientific and to log our, information as you described earlier, and that's really going to help us, I think, to achieve the desired goal of finally,
in my
bringing
mindset,
this mystery to an end.
Definitely.
To a close.
We need that science to be able to formulate our hypothesis. And then even if we have a hypothesis, we have to go back and debunk that now. Okay, so I know I have this hypothesis. This is what I'm assuming it is. Let me go back now and debunk that hypothesis. And
Search and research.
Is something different now? Something changed. So as you said, search and research, and it's at that point where we can say, okay, I've done my initial investigation, I have my hypothesis, I reviewed my hypothesis, I went back and I changed it or I didn't change it. Now I'm going to bring it to a peer review. And when I look at peer review, I look at those people who have been in the field, such as yourself, so long to know that area and understand that area. I'm going to have you take a look at it. Okay. I'm also going to send it to, on the scientific side, to maybe a biologist and have them look at it and say, okay, this either is going to work for that environment based upon what's in the environment, the tree type, everything, the whole concept of it, and then try and prove scientifically that this is legitimate. Because once we have that proof of scientifically, now we have that documented. Okay. And when we look at it, we can say, yes, we've seen something. I have yet to see a Sasquatch with my own eyes in the daylight or at night. I have seen red eye shine. Could it have been a Sasquatch? Sure. Could it have been something other animal? Sure. But not having that data to where I can either film it to truly see what it is, to formulate an opinion, hypothesis, I really can't. I have to go, okay, I saw something.
Was it the Jersey Devil out here in the Pine Barrens? You never know. But hey, man, that was cool stuff. That's why we're bringing in guys like Mike, and we got eDNA scientists, we got anthropologists on our team now. So that's what this scientific study is all about.
Bringing it forward
and
doing it right.
We're gonna find out something. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
All right, looks good.
All right,
we are rolling.
Ready to
If
go.
you don't mind just clapping for me for just a second. Perfect. So I can link that audio up. So before we get started, let's take a moment to just tell me a little bit about... Hey guys, we're starting, by the way.
I'm done. I got it all out.
Thanks, Bri.
So tell me a little bit about, like, let's say I have never been to the Pine Barrens before. I don't know much about it. What could you say about the terrain and what to expect here in the Pine Barrens?
The terrain here is fairly flat, very minimal, inclines and variations. You do get some, but from everyone else I speak with who's been, in other parts of the country, they like the Pine Barrens because there's not a lot of up and down hiking, So a lot of pine forest, a lot of bogs, a lot of cedar swamps. Just, it's just one of those areas that has a lot of variations, and it's unlike any place in the world, actually.
Yeah, I keep hearing from Jake and Mike and people I've interviewed talking about how unique this is compared. Can you say like what is so unique about this area for you personally, as someone who's spent so much time here?
For me personally, it's the area I go to for my serenity, and so when I come through here, I'm always just observant of what's around me, and I see the changes, especially when we have like either controlled burns or wildfires. There's a lot of things that change when you're in here a lot, and it does look the same in a lot of places too. That's the other opposite. Like, you can get easily turned around, but I don't know, it's like nowhere else. Like, I go to Pennsylvania, I go to New York, it's really like nothing else. And we have plants, we have wildlife here that is unique to this area, some of the carnivorous plants. But yeah, it's a great place to come and check out.
So I was going to actually ask you about the vibe, so you sort of answered that question, but what's the size of the area we're talking about? Like, if you added up all of the Pine Barrens, what's the kind of geographical size of this area?
I always say 1.2 million acres. I know a couple of other guys have, I can't even give you the 10,000 acre or, kind of thing. It's vast. Like, you go up on Apple Pie Hill Tower and you can just see the horizon, just trees, On the other side, you can see, maybe on a clear day, the little bit of Philadelphia, the skyline, It's just like amazing when you're up there and you get to see the vastness of this, and it's just like maybe a trail or a forest road that separates you from that, skyline.
Yeah, it is again, it's like you're saying, unique, and it definitely feels very different than a lot of places I've been. I've been all up and down the East Coast and all over, and very different. Now, one of the different legends that sticks out here that I'm sure I'm going to ask you about is the Jersey Devil. So, what is the Jersey Devil? If you had to explain to somebody that maybe isn't familiar with the folklore.
We've talked a little bit, and I said that my personal thoughts on that is a folklore perpetuated by people having encounters with Bigfoot in the forest. The reason I say that, because, there's just one. It's like, people used to think there was just one Bigfoot running around leaving tracks all over, back in the day. But if JD was a real thing, well, there'd have to be some type of, breeding population at least, right? I mean, it can't be a ghost or something that's been around for 300 years. It started back in the late 1700s with Mother Leeds, I've been to that area of the Pine Barrens. I've looked for the remains of the house, and, there's different legends and things, but I think personally that people are out in the forest and they see an 8-foot tall creature with red glowing eyes, and maybe it's flailing its arms like this, and it's got the hair hanging off the arm. It looks like wings, and it's screaming at them. Generally speaking, I think that there could be some substances involved, some maybe alcohol or other substances that is maybe contributing to their mindset. But that's my personal thought, and you know what? It's not a bad thing. We got a hockey team, the Jersey Devils. We got, just like Bigfoot's all over now, But it's a nice legend, and it's fun to have this discussion with people and to hear their thoughts on it. I had a person come into my shop the other day telling me she thought she saw the Jersey Devil when she was 17. Turns out she was drinking, and she agreed with me that it's probably, related. But it's more likely that people are having encounters with Bigfoot and just wrapping their minds around the legend of the Jersey Devil.
I love that theory, and I was going to ask you specifically to talk about that. So Leeds Point, could you tell me a little bit of that? Is that supposedly where the legend originates?
That's where it originally supposedly happened. Mother Leeds giving birth to her 13th child, and she cursed it. I've read different variations on the story. I'm not an expert on the Jersey Devil. I focus mainly on Bigfoot, but we go to Smithville. My wife and I go to Smithville, historic Smithville Village, and we like to enjoy a day shopping and eating at their restaurants. And like I said, I've looked a few times, but I haven't spent a lot of time delving into it, there's some cool places, and maybe we'll get a chance to go check it out later.
Yeah, and just one last question on the Jersey Devil. Something you had said previously that interested me was about how like there's a inconsistency, or maybe I should say, like when you talk about Bigfoot sightings, right? Like the sightings tend generally to follow a pretty consistent pattern, behavior-wise, like wherever you go, right?
Right.
Whereas you mentioned the Jersey Devil, there's kind of an inconsistency with some of the reports. Can you say something about that?
Totally. As far as like, and again, I haven't personally researched this to any great extent, but my research friend and partner Art has, originally started out to do a documentary on it, and he and I have talked about this, that there are so many variations on the descriptions and the sizes and the appearances. It's just like, in some they're flying, in others they're stationary on a rooftop, and again the facial features, or the horse head, and they all differ. Every person I've spoken to has claimed to have seen it, has a different version of it, and I know some people have mentioned the fact that it could be one of those bats that came from Africa. The name starts with a W, but the name escapes me at the moment. But that obviously couldn't pan out because it wouldn't survive in this climate. But that's the thing that really did it for me, is like, there's no way this thing could be real, is because there's just too many different variations. Sure, Bigfoot, they're like people. They look different, you know what I mean? But there's often similarities as far as, either auburn colored or dark brown or black, and, variations on that, different heights and facial expressions, features, things like that. But still, there's a lot of consistency with the reports that we get,
Yeah. Now that we've gotten the Jersey Devil stuff out of the way, obviously Bigfoot. So tell me about, what do you know about the history of Bigfoot in the Pine Barrens?
Well, I mean, there is a history, but it for me personally, like, reports go back to maybe the early 70s. I know that there were native people here that experienced them in the past. I've spoken with some of them as well, but there's not too much that I've committed to my, keeping track of them, that type of thing. I just feel like in the day they were called wild man, not necessarily Bigfoot, So we do have that Native American history here in the Pine Barrens. Yeah, the Lenni Lenape tribe was in this area, and again, there's what's the term? Not written history, but oral history of that type of wild man encounter happening. But for me, the earliest reports actually happened around the early 1970s that we see reported, and they continue all through the 80s, 90s, up until now, with a lot of people seeing something strange, and again, often wrapping their mind around the Jersey Devil, not realizing that there's a potential, undiscovered primate running around here,
Yeah. Before we get into your personal kind of investigations, do you have a report or a Bigfoot report you've taken or investigated here in the Pine Barrens that kind of sticks out to you? It might be like a personal favorite or one that really speaks to you.
Well, aside from my own, which would be high up there on the favorites list, there's been some really cool intimidation reports that I've followed up on, investigated. Ones where a hiker or a poacher or somebody going out into the woods, kind of gets intimidated to leave, and they're kind of escorted out, One from the 1980s, not far from here, there was a young man who was solo camping, and he had cooked his supper, and he heard something circling his camp, and then when he got into his tent to go to bed, this thing screamed at him like a freight train. He could feel the volume in his chest, and he wound up screaming back at it, "Get out of here, leave me alone." And next morning, as soon as the sun started coming up, he was out of there, So that's an abridged version, but that's one of the ones I like. There's been a lot, actually. I mean, there's one with a couple going out, just tooling about, and they stop the vehicle for a moment on a trail, and the girlfriend sees something walk right across the trail in front of them. She tells her boyfriend, and he didn't see it. He didn't believe her, so he gets out. He's looking, and he sees a face looking at him through the bushes, And then that same couple actually had a second encounter at Apple Pie Hill, where they're going up the tower, and she sees something in her dim flashlight run across the parking area, and mentions it to him again. And of course, he didn't see it this time. But so there's two stories, from the same group, same couple. And the description, though, that she gave of this individual matches the one that ran in front of me in the road crossing.
So do you want to talk about your sighting then?
Well, we were just out. I was actually out with my friend who's a Jersey Devil enthusiast. And so she and I were out. It was on St. Patty's Day, 2010. And we went out to Bear Swamp Hill Tower Road. It's like Apple Pie Hill. It used to have another fire tower. Got taken out by an F-16, though, so nothing on top. We were out there and, doing what we usually do with the whoops and the knocks and things. And it was kind of like the weather we've been having with misty, drizzling, and cold. It was in, March. No activity, so I said, let's wrap it up. We're heading home, just talking about music, not even talking Bigfoot. We get into civilization, doing about 50 miles an hour in my Oldsmobile at the time. And this thing tore out from a development through a path that has chain link fence on both sides, doing probably about 30 miles an hour. Tore out in front of me. I got on my brakes. She slid forward, had a bottle of water between her legs. It sprayed up all over her. I avoided hitting him, and it kind of like went, like, whoa, like it knew it messed up, mid-stride. About 3 feet in front of my car, but hunched over, running on two legs. It was like 3.5 feet over the hood of my car. And she says, what the F was that? I went, deer? She goes, no, it wasn't. So, it happens like that, it's so quick. I wound up turning around and going back to see if I could find any track impressions on the side of the road, but it was all hard packed. Couldn't hear anything running through the brush. But where it came out and the trajectory it was running on, it would have gone through one of my customers' yards, and her house borders the power lines, which I always say is like a highway for animals to use, especially at night, and that particular set of power lines goes back into Wharton, which is where we're at now, and continues for miles and miles. And there's been a few other reports that have come in near the same power line.
Interesting. We've been talking about Bigfoot and all this kind of stuff. What originally got you interested in becoming an investigator, and what was the drive to come out here and look for things?
Truthfully, I went to see the movie Sasquatch: The Legend of Bigfoot when I was a kid on Long Island with my dad, and that terrified me. Didn't give it much thought, though. After I moved down here as a teenager to the Pine Barrens, we'd go out, have bonfires and keg parties and stuff. But I was going through a little rough patch in my marriage at the time, and to be out of my head, I started to get online and look at the BFRO's website and check out reports, and I was surprised to learn that there were reports in New Jersey. And instead of being up in my head on holidays when I was separated from my kids, I would get out into the forest and do some day hikes and get some serenity, And I started just kind of doing on my own some armchair research. And in 2008, a couple of years into that, I attended my first expedition with the BFRO in Northwest Pennsylvania. The Pennsylvania Northwest, we call that. That was the start of it, and that's where I really got the Bigfoot bug. That was the expedition. I met a lot of great people, learned a lot, and on the final night, actually we stayed an extra night, but on that morning, I had one come up to my tent and scare the crap out of me.
Is there anything else you want to mention Bigfoot-wise about Pine Barrens before we move on to another topic?
As far as Pine Barrens go,
Bigfoot specifically.
I'm saying as far as the Bigfoot in the Pine Barrens, they're here. I know a couple of the people you've interviewed have had opinions on that. My opinion differs. I don't think that there's only a few moving around. I think they do move around the area because obviously an individual that size needs a lot of resources, right, to maintain their caloric intake and all that. So they probably move from area to area periodically, but I would have to say there's probably at least a few family groups in the area, and I do feel like they have the ability to move around the state fairly easily due to our green belts and the the pathways along like the Turnpike and the Garden State Parkway, and there's been of course reports there. So yeah, they're here, and I just think that they're have a different attitude than in some of the other places I've been. They have more of that, forget about it. They come in and mess with you a little bit. They'll check you out if you're in their woods, seeing if you're like taking any of their resources or messing up things or wrecking anything. And then typically they just want you to get out of Dodge. But they're a little smaller here. I will say that they're not as big as I've heard and seen in other areas, like in the mountainous regions. They don't need to be. You know what I mean? As far as coloration goes, I think they're very, very commonly auburn colored, which matches a lot of these pine needles as they start to, die off. They can blend easily. I had recently a couple of reports right in my town, though, where a couple of people indicated seeing something they couldn't explain at, various times of the night. And so they do move around. I believe they're opportunists. So, hey, you've got all this beautiful land to hang out, cedar swamps and everything where it's more temperate. Why not? I mean, why wouldn't they be here? We've talked to people we know, mutual friends that have said that they've had some pretty good activity on the East Coast and the Pine Barrens, which you wouldn't expect.
Yeah, definitely not something I expected. And I was going to ask you about the corridor thing too, but you kind of explained that. But
I'm reading your mind, Alex.
Exactly. Moving away from Bigfoot just for a moment, you've talked about other weird things that have happened out here. So what do you know about stories of other things, non-Jersey Devil, non-Bigfoot? Like there's rumors of hauntings and other things here too.
Yeah,
right?
oh, for sure. We have a lot of different legends as far as like the Lady in White down by Carranza Memorial, and then also at another bridge off of Route 206. And there's the story of the White Stag, which is a legend that this stagecoach was bringing passengers to one of the local taverns or inns, and the bridge had gotten washed out, and the White Stag appeared, and it, I guess, stopped the stagecoach from going over the bridge. I'm not a historian on the Pine Barrens. I just recently purchased a book though, Legends of the Pine. Well, let me rephrase. I don't know the title, but it's one of these books. Oh gosh, I wish I could remember the author's name right now, because we really give him credit for like preserving this area. It was going to be turned into a super base at one point, and because of his efforts, it was preserved. So it's like anything else. Every area has its urban legends. We recently did a little thing on the Blue Hole, which apparently has, resulted in people losing their eyes and getting scratched up and even dying. And it's like a blue body of water in South Jersey, which again isn't far from here. I kind of put that legend to rest. I even got underneath to see that it's not bottomless by putting my camera in the water. But again, I always try to be like focused on one thing. I'm not a jack of all trades, so while I'm interested in hearing about those things, I don't necessarily commit them to memory. You know what I mean? I'm more on the Bigfoot end. People talk about Dogman and stuff like that. I've heard reports, but I've never seen any indication of that here. And as far as like orbs and things like that, we've definitely had reports of some strange, what we call paranormal parallels that occur. We see lights, we see things in the sky. Definitely UFOs are part of this area. We see a lot of, and again, there are military bases nearby, so who knows? But I've personally had a couple fly over my house twice, and again, it's like anything else. What you're seeing. I mean, I don't care if people necessarily believe me or not. It's I don't keep it a secret. Like I'm all about it. If somebody has a report, they know where to come. If you Google me, I'm gonna pop up. And there's a lot of different things I've heard, and I keep an open mind. I don't judge. I don't put anybody down. I may not always agree with the person or the situations revolving in the report, but I will listen, and I won't judge or make fun of you. So that's a good thing. But yeah, I think that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, I know because I was talking to Mike about it. There was probably like during the drone craze, right, a few months ago, there was some stuff going on here. Like, did you hear of stories of drones over the Pine Barrens?
Tons of stories. I didn't really get too heavy into it because I was getting bombarded with people asking me about it, and and sending me videos that I thought were like, oh my God, don't they know that's a plane? You know, come on. You know, like me personally, again, I say, well, just like anything else, people are very unobservant. Like I've hidden on the edge of a trail and did a little whoop, and people didn't even see me, you know, the hikers walking by. Same thing, nobody looks up anymore. You know, they're all looking at their phones. So it's just funny how I just feel like there was a lot of misidentification, again, with that. All I do know is that I told you I crashed my drone, and my lovely wife had ordered me one for my birthday, and it got confiscated by the government. So I never got my drone for my birthday, which sucked, but we'll get another one. But yeah, I didn't see any personally. I might have seen one. And again, people reporting SUV-sized drones flying around, and I don't doubt them. I have a customer who claims he saw one come down. He was at a nursing home area visiting his mother during COVID, and you know his wife was in. They could only do one at a time. One apparently came down. It hovered right there and then took off. That's different, I would think, than a drone. Personally, that could be like a, you know, an unidentified aerial phenomena. But I don't know. I didn't really get too heavy involved, and I didn't really go for the final explanation we got with regards to them doing research. It's like, come on, you know, what are we, stupid?
A little weird.
But
yeah. Now, in terms of like weird people and crime and stuff, have you heard of like weird stuff out here in the Pine Barrens?
sure, yeah, there's been some strange stuff too with, you know, meth labs and things like that, just like anywhere. I've encountered some strange folks along my travels. Generally, though, they were under the influence of something and they were partying or just maybe in the wrong state of mind. But I haven't had any real problems with them, you know. I mean, a couple of times, you know, you kind of felt like saying, hey, get out of here, you know. But yeah, it's not really a bad area as far as crime goes. Like I don't necessarily worry about my belongings when I'm out here in the forest camping out and stuff. Yeah, it's like anything else. You want to lock your valuables up if you're going to be away from your camp or your home or whatever. But yeah, as far as crime goes, it's something I find is worse closer to the cities and urban areas than they are here. You know, so generally speaking, I don't worry too much about it, but I'm always aware. So I always have that awareness, and I typically only carry a pepper blaster as protection, you know, just at least to give me an opportunity to get away from an assailant should I experience it. But
Right.
not something I really give a lot of thought to.
Fair enough. Now, could you tell me a little bit about, you know, there's this term for people that live in this area, pineys, right?
Pineys.
What are the pineys like?
Pineys are really cool, actually. They're very I think sometimes misunderstood. You know, people talk about like interbreeding and stuff, I think, and give them that bad kind of like a rap as far as intelligence and stuff. But I know a lot of cool pineys. They kind of took me under their wing, and they were kind of happy when we did the episode for finding Bigfoot. They thought it was cool to bring attention to this area, which you wouldn't necessarily think they would, right? They'd want to keep it all to themselves. But I've met a few along the way that expressed that they were happy. We're going to meet some today, probably, when we go have some nice brunch. Yeah, it's like, I don't know, it's changed recently. A lot of people have moved into the area, so there's less and less pineys. There's still a definite population of them, but they were more living off the land kind of thing, you know, helping each other out, that kind of thing. You know, they definitely have each other's backs, and generally speaking, very kind and considerate individuals. But yeah, you don't want to go, you know, rolling up on them at night. You're not welcome. I think there's probably less and less now than, of course, 30, 40 years ago. We're going to drive by some of these deserted old towns too on our travels today. I'll point out a few areas for you, and you might get to see some of our rich history of the pineys and the forest.
Great. Is there anything else you want to say in closing about the Pine Barrens or Bigfoot or in general?
Well, it's something I never anticipated myself personally getting into. I mean, I had an interest, but I never dreamed of becoming a actual researcher or an investigator, an organizer with the BFRO, or having having done the extent of the travels I have in pursuit of that, discovery, and I'm not trying to prove it to anybody. I'm not trying to, gain fame and wealth as a result. I enjoy being out in nature, and the Pine Barrens just happens to be in my backyard, and it's a great place to get out and enjoy nature. And I've learned a lot about nature and camping and everything else. I was from New York originally, so we didn't do any of this, I met a ton of great people that have become like family to me, like, where else can you go out into the forest and have fun with like-minded individuals that's not revolving around drugs and alcohol, but it's like the thrill seeking is still there, you know what I mean? You're still chasing it, because I can have an 8.5 foot tall individual tear my arms and legs off. That's better than any drug I can imagine, and we have a great time. And to take a passion like that and turn into something we actually do make a few bucks that you can use towards gear or whatever else, nothing wrong with that, So by day I'm a nutritionist and a health food store owner, and by night I'm a Bigfoot researcher.
That's awesome. All right, I think that's a wrap.
Here with the STM crew. We're just going to check out the Harrisville Ruins real quick as a part of our journey through the Pine Barrens.
Check out these ruins over here. Oh, busting the Sony out?
Dude, I am like
That's the Nikon.
I am a baby gazelle with this thing. I'm clueless. It's pretty simple, huh?
Between all of us, there's so much camera gear. Not much remaining, but enough to get an idea of some past history. Not everybody knows about the entrance that they have in the back here. And we passed.
This is so like Florida. This is Florida vibes.
Yeah.
Like the dry forest part, just this area is part.
I went through this one the first time, and then I realized
Holy shit,
there's a better entrance over here. They hung it up a little.
Try to close it off, huh?
Which way do we go? This way. Look at that.
Oh, so this is the ruins, huh?
Yeah, man.
Oh.
What do you think?
Whoa. Is this where allegedly the Jersey Devil resides?
This is exactly where the Jersey Devil resides. It's just it's a cool part of history that, not everybody gets a chance to see.
Yeah.
Hey, Chewie. Chewie. Yuck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is where the Jersey Devil
Cool spot there. You can actually walk all the way around it.
What year is this from?
I'm saying late 1700s, early 1800s. It's easy enough to Google.
creepy spot, huh?
Yeah, it's just spooky.
Yeah, man.
It's that East Coast weirdness.
Weird. East Coast strange place.
For sure. This is one of the strangest places.
Milks on the wall, dude.
And here we have bog iron. This is what they use to make, shells in the Revolutionary War.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Big bog iron industry area.
This is wild.
Again, I'm not a historian, but it's one of those cool spots.
Yeah, definitely, like you said, that's a good way to put it. East Coast weirdness. You just don't get this kind of stuff on the West
Yeah.
Coast. Oh, look how
Back to the forest, you just
Look
come
at
upon
that.
ruins
Yeah.
and everything.
He's not sure what to think.
not going that way.
You miss out on it.
I think it's batteries inside.
What's the
That is cool. There's a couple of them.
pathway that takes you around it. Ah, you don't get this everywhere.
I got you walking in the back of the shop. You can barely see like a black figure. I bet you someone's gonna be like, "Oh, there it is. There's one right there."
You know it. Always happens. What do you think?
I like it. I like how the red. It goes kind of with the theme of the Jersey.
Doesn't it?
Devil.
Yeah, it really does. I just think it's really spooky back here too. You know, I want to do a night op.
I was just gonna say that would be.
I definitely want to do a night op.
Ghost
And
type thing.
oh, look at this! Look at this!
Oh shit! Oh wow! Oh, someone made a little campfire. Alex,
Yo!
hey, you gotta come over here. That is awesome.
A little disruption in the moss too. I don't know, man. Something was camping out here. Probably the JD.
Yep. You gotta come see it. It's like a miniature. Someone made a miniature campfire out of twigs and little rocks. A little fire pit. It's like out of like a wilderness Barbie.
It's totally something you don't expect to find. But I just looked down and I'm like, check this out.
Funny, actually. Yeah.
Check that out.
That's cute.
They even have more firewood than we have.
That is cool. I mean, like that. That's pretty funny. Light it, put a little match in the middle. Stick it up.
We were just saying, man, we should do a night op here.
A night op here would be cool. Little like ghost op type, spooky vibe type thing.
Woo! Ha! Let's go eat. Let's go have. Oh man, I forgot to wear my shirt. This is, yeah, you go around that way. I forgot to wear my shirt that says I ate with the Jersey Devil at Lucille's.
Yeah, that's cool. Maybe they got like a sticker or something. I'd get one.
They probably do. I don't know if it was. I'm pretty sure it was glass, not you know, iron industry.
Yeah. Well, who knows? I mean, they did a lot of stuff back then. Could be multiple.
But this particular location, I'm saying, I'm pretty confident it was glass making.
You guys ready? Yep. Let's roll.
Woohoo! Way to go, Chewie!
Why do they keep this gated?
Well, they want to preserve it and prevent people from coming and vandalizing it and,
right, people just do it anyway.
and graffitiing it. So.
Fabulous job.
Yeah.
People just do it anyway, right?
Right?
You know, this is like, it's like that scene in Terminator when the portal opens up and the T-1000 comes out. And
I was-
Like The Walking Dead, where they got to
burns a
patch
hole.
the fence.
I was gonna say we have to go through the portal to get out of here now.
Careful, you
Chewie's like nothing.
watch out. You don't want to get cut there. You got it.
Go ahead. I'll seal the portal.
And there's another one here too.
That's the first one I went through.
That's not the building I saw on the way in.
There's probably more room.
The one I saw was very like stone, like it was like Blair Witch. You know, like that building in the end?
Yeah. This is what we do here. We just head out and find weird shit. So, thanks for coming along. Hey, Squatchers. Eric Spinner here with my wife Heather. Just came back to the scene of the crime. We spent the weekend, at least I did, with the STM crew and some other guys, some other new friends. Brian and Chewie go hiking, and Mike wanders. This was the facilities. This was behind our campsite. All this underneath this little valley, all this was behind us. Cedar swamp, and the river is not far if you go through there. I'm not going to walk down there now because it's a little warmer today. And here in Jersey, what do we have, Heather?
Chiggers.
Tiggers and chicks. Yep. Tiggers and chicks. So, I'm not going to risk it because I'm not permethrined. I always permethrin up when we're out in the forest in the warmer weather here in Jersey. Because as much as I hate ticks, chiggers suck even worse. But we just like to come back after everything is said and done. I packed up yesterday because I had a lot to put away. My townhouse and all the gear, and Alek and Luca went down to Smithville and Leeds Point to get some Jersey Devil footage. So I came back to camp after we had a great lunch at Lucille's Country Kitchen, and I broke down camp because you know what? I froze my ass. Well, I had my Mr. Buddy heater, so I didn't freeze, but I was a little wet. It's no fun being wet, right, Heather?
Nope.
But hey, this is what we do in search of the elusive Sasquatch. Not easy, let me tell you. There we go. It's flowing now. It wasn't doing this yesterday.
Wow.
This is some of the best water in the world. This is the K&C aquifers beneath us. And I'll tell you what, it's good stuff. So yeah, this is a beautiful spot in the Pine Barrens of New Jersey. We're in Wharton State Forest, and there's been lots of reports from this area over the years, even as recent as last year. There's the Wading River, which on my last expedition we actually did a night op using the canoe that Andy Giles provided me with a Bigfoot stencil on it, and we literally floated downstream, me, Patty, and I think it was Dave. I think Dave, yeah, was the third person in the canoe. And I had my thermal, in case we got lucky like we did in New York. Unfortunately, my thermal died. So it's funny, we came upon a bend and there was a group of people sitting on the river, and I said, oh, I know them. I came down to look for tracks. Let's see if there's any tracks on the bank here. There are some motorcycle tracks, so that's not very encouraging that people ride their dirt bikes down here, disrupt things. But this is a part of New Jersey most people don't think about. They think about the oil refineries and the turnpike and the Sopranos up north. But look at this, look at this. Huh? Anything so beautiful and peaceful. Yeah, this is right behind base camp, and so it's really pretty cool to have access to the water like this. And you know, I always say when you're looking for Sasquatch, you need to be near water. Individuals of that size definitely need a resource. So I'm gonna come back up this hill and meet back up with Heather. Hello, Heather.
Hello, Eric.
Heather. Look at me, even with my sciatica, I make it right up this hill. You know why? Because I'm a billy goat. I'm a T-Rex. I get shit done. Makeup?
Hair and makeup.
Hair and makeup, where they at?
Ooh, I get the headrest pillow? Thank you.
Oh yeah.
Very nice.
Guests get the nice
yeah.
headrest pillow. I get the burnt one.
It's the good luck one.
It is the good luck chair.
You need it.
That is true. Saved us from getting a ticket.
I had to remember my Bobo necklace, so
Nice.
No, that looks good.
Yeah, I remember. Who makes those necklaces?
I don't know. Women on Etsy.
You look like someone from the BFRO.
Fuck that.
I'm using that as a blooper. We got that.
It's alright.
Take 2.
Look, it's like, who is this guy? Who the fuck is this guy? Oh, let's see what you're doing. Got that right into the H1N.
Yes, sir.
Testing, check, 1, check, 1, 2,
Sec.
check,
Still powering up.
check, check,
Alright.
1, 2.
Looks good. Okay.
So you record separate audio?
Yeah, just in case. So you can put that in your pocket or just set it right here, wherever. Just so it's out of the way. Out of question, out of mind. And then so just getting a shot is about like chest up. So just so you know.
I know I don't look great, but hey, in my PJs. And cut. Thank you.
Okay, you want to hold this for a
You
second?
got it.
Just,
I got
you
it.
turn it around, film me coming through with you.
I don't mind.
Not doing anything illegal.
Nah, not much. The graffiti artist.
We go to all these abandoned places, and the one thing you can count on seeing is like
Yeah.
people drawing dicks and like stupid
Well, there's a dick over here.
teenage like crap. It's like, okay, we get it.
I'll show you the dick. It's over here.
I'm good. I've seen enough.
You've seen enough dick.
Adventures.
One of the outlaying buildings. And of course, the obligatory dick.
All right, cool.
Is that a good way to wrap it up?
Yeah, that was perfect. I like that. I like that a lot.
Thanks, brother.
Yeah, thank you.
It was fun. Thanks for squatching. Thanks for checking out this episode of Squatch Talks Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, follow, and give us a like. And stay tuned for more exciting stories on Squatch Talks.